By the way, Trump, he's not opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. What more evidence do we need than January 6th? I ask everyone, take time, reflect on this perilous moment. A president who wants to be bound by no law or constitution, perpetuating a unified assault on American traditions. This is a president who in just over 140 days has fired government watchdogs that could hold him accountable for corruption and fraud. He's declared a war on culture, on history, on science, on knowledge itself. Databases, quite literally, are vanishing. He's delegitimizing news organizations, and he's assaulting the First Amendment. And the threat of defunding them, at threat, he's dictating what universities themselves can teach. He's targeting law firms and the judicial branch that are the foundations of an orderly and civil society. He's calling for a sitting governor to be arrested for no other reason than to, in his own words, for getting elected. And we all know this Saturday, he's ordering our American heroes, the United States military, and forcing them to put on a vulgar display to celebrate his birthday, just as other failed dictators have done in the past. Look, this isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived. He's taking a wrecking ball to our founding fathers' historic project, 3 co-equal branches of independent government. There are no longer any checks and balances. Congress is nowhere to be found. Speaker Johnson has completely abdicated that responsibility. The rule of law has increasingly been given way to the rule of Don. The founding fathers, they didn't live and die to see this kind of moment. It's time for all of us to stand up. Justice Brandeis, he said it best. In a democracy, the most important office, with all due respect, Mr. President, is not the presidency, and it's certainly not governor. The most important office is office of citizen. At this moment, we all need to stand up and be held to account, a higher level of accountability. If you exercise your First Amendment rights, please do it peacefully. I know many of you are feeling deep anxiety, stress, and fear, but I want you to know that you are the antidote to that fear and that anxiety. What Donald Trump wants most is your fealty, your silence to be complicit in this moment. Do not give in to him.
That was a blistering speech there from the California governor, Gavin Newsom, responding after days of back and forth between his state and Los Angeles specifically, and the White House and President Trump, including comments that the president has made saying that if he was his border czar, he would have Governor Newsom arrested, something that the governor there invoked as he was essentially referencing not only what we've been seeing play out in Los Angeles, which he was plenty critical of, including Trump bypassing the governor there to deploy the National Guard, also sending hundreds of Marines to Los Angeles. He also invoked the fact that he had implied having him arrested, the president's upcoming military parade that he's having here in Washington, his fight with Harvard, and he warned other states in that speech that, quote, other states are next. He said that Donald Trump is not opposed to lawlessness, and he invoked what happened on January 6th. He also addressed what we've been seeing play out over the last several nights in Los Angeles and condemned the violence and the vandalism. He pointed to the hundreds of arrests that have played out so far already in that city and said that they are working through video and compiling additional cases, as he thanked the Los Angeles Police Department for the work that it's done so far and said it was needless to have the National Guard also deployed there. Those were notable comments coming from the governor after a vicious back and forth between President Trump and Governor Newsom, as he has repeatedly criticized the job that Newsom has done and said if it was not for him sending in the National Guard, that Los Angeles would be burning to the ground. I want to bring in CNN's Priscilla Alvarez back here with me, also our chief and law enforcement and intelligence analyst, John Miller. But Scott Jennings and Kate Bedingfield, I want to start with you because, Kate, obviously to hear what we just did from Governor Newsom. He went far beyond just what has been happening in terms of Los Angeles and the protests there and how the president and the White House have responded. I mean, he has essentially was attacking everything that has happened over the last several months that Donald Trump has been in office. He said the moment that we feared has arrived.
Yeah, I think he's using this moment to channel some of the energy that a faction of the Democratic base wants to see from Democratic leaders. I think this is the kind of thing that people who feel frustrated that the Democrats are not taking on Trump more directly, this is exactly the kind of thing they want to see. Now, I think the question here, though, more broadly for Democrats politically is this an effective message? I think at the end of the day, what is, we know that the larger argument about Trump's lawlessness, about abuse of power, it can resonate. I thought it was very effective the way he called out Trump's hypocrisy around protecting law enforcement on January 6th. But we also know from the election that we just saw transpire in 2024 that this argument about democracy, it doesn't hold the kind of urgency in people's lives across the country that it does for some who are the kind of most vocal champions of the Democratic Party. And I think Democrats have to reconcile that. So, when Gavin Newsom has an opportunity to command national attention, as he does right now, and to take on Trump directly, there is an opportunity there to go back to the economy, to go back to what people across the country are feeling in their day-to-day lives. And I think that is the challenge from a political messaging standpoint that Democrats have to reconcile here and find a way forward on.
Scott Jennings, you saw and heard Governor Newsom condemning what President Trump has been doing in office, not just in regards to Los Angeles, but also overall. He also condemned the violence and the vandalism that we've seen playing out in Los Angeles amid these protests and said it's not acceptable. What was your take on that speech?
It's amazing to me. First of all, this guy's the governor of a state, and it has got one of its most important cities burning on his watch. And he's out here launching a presidential campaign. I mean, there's no other way to listen to what happened and not conclude that he just launched his presidential campaign on top of this lawlessness that's going on in California. He governs a failed state. He sits atop of a failed state. And he sits, I guess, at the leadership right now of a political party that's wanting to coddle the illegal invasion of our country that's causing what's happening. It's not particularly controversial for Donald Trump to enforce federal law, our immigration laws, and yet to Democrats and to Gavin Newsom, it's an affront to them for the President of the United States to enforce federal law. I mean, he went down a litany of things that have nothing to do with what's happening in California. All that's happening in California is that a bunch of foreign nationals have occupied large swaths of the United States. One city is burning, and the President of the United States is trying to bring order. That's all that's happening. And we get this litany of complaints from Gavin Newsom about everything about how much the Democrats in California have failed. I don't think it's going to resonate with the American people. I think it's going to look opportunistic, and people are going to wonder, why in the world is the governor of California complaining about Harvard when one of his cities is on fire?
But Kate, I mean, the criticism, well, a lot of those protesters have been peaceful, I should note, as we're watching what's happening in L.A. Scott, just to put a point on what you said there. But Kate, what we had heard from Democrats here in Washington earlier, like Senator John Fetterman saying, the Democrats needed to have a stronger response. They needed to condemn the violence, what was happening. I mean, the governor did that there, and also was heavily critical of the immigration efforts by the Trump administration, saying that Trump is going far beyond what they promised on the campaign trail to go after criminals first.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom was extremely critical of any protesters who were violent in that speech. He dedicated a chunk of the speech to asking people to be peaceful and to criticizing those who were being violent. And I think you've seen that across the board from Democrats who have, I think the idea that Senator Fetterman sort of put out there that Democrats haven't been criticizing the violence is just not true. It's just not borne out by what Democrats have been saying. I do think across the board, I take his point, his larger point, that people need to feel that Democrats want to see peace here. They want to see peaceful protests. They want to see order. They're not against the idea of law enforcement protecting their communities. We know that people want to see their communities protected, and Democrats do need to make clear that they support it. But I think it would be impossible and an inaccurate assessment to watch what Gavin Newsom just said and suggest that he was somehow condoning violent protest when he quite clearly said the opposite.